Hey, stay to Steve, please like and subscribe. Click on the Deck Heroes icon, click on subscribe, 100% free. Well, blood in, blood out. Anyway, got a new infantry commander. Is it good? Is it not good? I'll let you know. I'm a little bit lukewarm, I'm going to be honest with you. A little bit lukewarm, but it does have some potential kind of short term, well, maybe low, medium term. Let's get in it anyway. So you can see from right there, you got the talent tree. You've got infantry, which is good. You got versatility, which is mostly about kind of resource gathering, which is obviously not so great. But you've also got a smite talent tree, which we'll talk about a little bit later. Anyway, so what does it do? Smite damage, and this is where it gets a little bit complicated. Okay, and I will explain a little bit later as well. If you look, basically, if you look at the definition of smite damage for the other smite commander, Luce, the definition for this commander must be different. And the reason why is because it says specifically for Luce that it's affected by bonuses to normal damage. All right, let's go forwards from there. Just keep that in mind. Right. Rage requirement 1000. Deals smite damage. Okay, we understand what that is. AKA not skill damage to a target group. AKA single target. Up to 2,400, right? And just to muddy those waters, for whatever reason, it does some token damage to an additional 2 enemy troops, aka 3 in total, up to a maximum of 300, basically. So it's a single damage commander, 2,400, and it does some token damage to additional 2 of 300 each, right? And it says here again, actually, smite damage is affected by bonuses to normal damage, not skill damage. Understood. Oh, maybe we'll see later. While this command, and then we go into Scots. Why aye? That's my Scottish translator. While this commander's troop is on the map, infantry units in their troop. Yeah, just thinking, who else's troop is it going to be? Well, thank you for the clarification. They receive up to 10% health, which is a token buff. A token buff. It's one of those things you would not. I'm glad it's there. You know what I mean? It'll be a glass cannon if it wasn't there. The fact that we get 10%, still kind of glass cannony, I'm going to be honest with you. Glass cannon. If it was a minimum of 20%, I'd say that's towards something reasonable. 10%, not so sure. Glass cannon, as I said. Anyway, we move on. 30% attack. Not to be confused with normal attack, obviously, because that would increase the smite damage thing. I'm pretty sure they're doing a differentiation. Yeah, this is attack, not to be confused with normal attack, even though this attack is an addition to the normal attack. Anyway, let's move on. 20% march speed, blah, blah, blah. Let's move on. Lion of the North. This commander's troop takes 10% less normal damage. Normal damage, which is smite damage and damage dealt by normal attacks, counter attacks, which goes back to when it says normal attacks, aka this attack bonus does not increase the normal attack damage, which would increase the smite damage, blah blah blah. I think that's what's likely, but it's slightly confusing. Also, does not include damage dealt by ranged basic attacks and ranged counter attacks. I think that's what's to come in this new edition. It's probably something that we would never use for anything other than Siege. Obviously, I haven't seen it. Nobody's seen it yet, but that's my guess. Anyway, we move on. Whenever this commander's troop deals smite damage with a damage factor greater than 1,000, which is interesting in terms of that damage calculator, because it says at the beginning the damage is 2,400, and this gives a hint that maybe that maximum smite damage is actually affected by troop number as well. And it must be, just trying to think, how could it ever be less than 1,000 unless, I mean, what number of troops is it which determines then, right, 2,400 for this? So how many to deter? What's the reduction in troop numbers where it gets to 1,000? Deep. Unclear, but obviously there's something in that formula which would make that slightly more clear. If somebody's got a better idea, please put it in the comments. Please. Okay. But just to make it slightly less complicated, slightly more complicated, sorry, there's an 80% chance that the damage will be increased by 40% for 10 seconds. Okay, that's fine. That's fine. Yeah. Whenever this commander troop takes... No, so this commander's troop takes 10% less normal damage, okay. But whenever this commander's troop deals smite damage with a damage factor greater than 1,000, there's an 80% chance the damage will be increased by 40%. Whenever this commander's troop deals smite damage with a damage factor greater... Okay. Okay. I think, is that really saying that there's a bonus to the active skill? And I think it's just saying that the active skill is going to be boosted by 1,000, which means that the smite damage factor to the other enemies is not 300. It's going to be 300 plus, oh my gosh, 120, 420, which is still kind of token. But it'll also increase those attack and counter-attack damage during those turns, maybe. Anyway, let's move on. Battle of Stirling Bridge. When attacking a troop on the map, this commander's troop deals 10% more smite damage and 10% normal damage. Now, as I said at the beginning, if you look at the definition of smite damage, it's affected by bonuses to normal damage. So why have they differentiated between the two? Whereas this infers, if you look at the addendum number 1, smite damage is affected by the bonuses to normal damage. Is affected by it? Interesting. So that infers then that normal damage, the smite damage calculator has a variable which includes normal damage, but that is not the only thing. From these other things that we're looking at, especially that Lion of the North, that smite damage factor, the 2,400, is affected by, yes, the normal damage, but probably also troop number. It's the only other thing which is going to be available, right? Which is going to be a variable. Your attack's going to be consistent. Your counter attack's going to be consistent. Your defense, your health, it could only be troop number. Interesting. To me, anyway. Interesting. Let's move on. This is the expertise skill. Whenever the commander's troop uses an active skill or is slowed, it dispels that active skill. No, it dispels all slow effects for up to 3 nearby allied and friendly troops, including this commander's troop. Interesting. I was talking about a different... I was talking about active damage and whether... Because it talks about the nearest troops, and I was saying, well, is that likely to be your troops? Or does that include whoever happens to be nearest? When I did that how to attack in a ball video, and this is the only description which makes it explicitly clear that it will that it would include your own troops. It doesn't say prioritizing your commander's troops. It's still a little bit unclear, but it makes it clear that it's unclear about which troops are going to be affected by that skill resistance regarding slow effects for up to 3 nearby allied and friendly troops. Interesting. Then grants them a damage and absorbing mighty shield of 1,000 for 2 seconds with a cooldown of 10 seconds. So whenever somebody tries to slow us, or whenever you use an active skill, assuming it's not within that 10-second cooldown, we're likely to get this shield. Forget the slowdown, unless you're trying to run away, which infantry don't really do, because we're always going to be too slow. but you will get that shield for 1,000. And now being mindful about how skill damage is actually calculated, it's not awful. It's not awful. So read the addendums at the bottom. Slow effects include any effect that reduce march speed, surprise, and dispel effects from active skills can be prevented by the silenced effect. So if I'm not even sure what it's saying. Hold on. Passive skills dispel effects that can take effect no matter what. Okay. Prevented by the silenced effect. So if you're paired up with somebody, aka I guess Alexander, who will prevent you being silenced, then you won't get that shield. Not from this anyway. You'll get it from Alexander, assuming that shield is triggered. Anyway, let's move on. That's what I think it is. It's slightly complicated. Anyway, the new Smite talent tree. Number 1, to the bitter end. For every 10 seconds after his commander's troop enters battle, he gains a 2% bonus to all types of smite damage dealt, up to 10%. Now, we've already said that there must be a difference between smite damage and one of those variables which make up smite damage, which is normal damage. Interesting. And this is specifically talking about smite damage. And every 10 seconds, you get up to 10% bonus to damage. Interesting. Thick skin. This commander's troop takes 6% less skill damage. Interesting. And it's showing you where they're located. So they're located at the end of a very large tree. So there's going to be some trade-off with a tree that large between what you want an infantry tree and what you want on this smite tree. And you can't have both. You can't have the best of both. You can't have all of both, even if you can have the best. If you know what I mean. You can't have, you know what I mean. You can't have both sides of the infantry and both sides of this. Anyway, let's move on. Fight or flight. Whenever this commander's troop deals any type of smite damage, all troops hit by the smite damage lose 45 rage. That's probably one of the most interesting things I've seen in this. It's got some kind of over-complicated calculations of skill effects. And essentially, it's a single damage commander with some token effect to up to 2 additional enemy troops, but I don't know if it's powerful enough in the sense to make it an area of effect. I guess it is an area of effect commander in the weakest sense. Up to, is it 420? So you're 2,400 to one, 420 to the others, ignoring all the other buffs that you can potentially get to, you know, just tickle it up a little bit. I'm going to give my thoughts after this next one. Thunderous Smite. Whenever this commander's troop deals any type of smite damage, which is going to be active skill, there's a 30% chance that the damage will be increased by 10%. All right, so all things considered, it's a single damage commander. There's this chance to get this shield, which is 1,000, that could be easily wiped out, but you know, you'd appreciate it. It's for 2 seconds. Interesting. Yeah, essentially when you're attacking troops, it's not 2,400. It's going to have the additional 10% on it. And not even 10%, it's because the normal damage will boost it by something less than 10% as well, which is probably dependent on troop number. You know what, again, even though it's single damage, and I listen, I appreciate this 2,400. And the 10% bonuses elsewhere, which makes it closer to, what's it called? That Cav commander, the glass cannon I talk about sometimes with the damage, which is for, is it 12 seconds or something like that? He's a very similar type of glass cannon. Because 10% health is really not a lot. If it was 15, I would say that's bare minimum. Now think about it, bare minimum. 20% is kind of like a low end of decent. for single damage commander. And again, I accept that he does this, token damage to the other two. I'm still going to classify him as a single damage commander overall. Yeah, I can. So I'm hypothesizing about what the health should be, but at the end of the day, it's not. It is 10%. Listen, of course, right now he's going to be amazing for Luce. Of course, he's going to boost him. It's another smite booster. They bring out another more decent smite damage commander. He's going to be absolutely relegated to 0. You know what I mean? So if you're going to have him, I'm not saying he's awful because he's just decent. He's single damage, okay? Forget the bonus. He's single damage. Let's look at that. Yeah, his expertise, you can potentially get 1,000 shield. Wow, thank you. Don't think I'm going to bother. Don't think I'm going to bother. Listen, if it's on Mightiest Governor and I can beg leadership to get me him for free, then of course I'll take it and it'll be very useful. I don't know about gold keys though. You know what I mean? I don't, even if I got it via that way and I can build him up very slow, I'm not going to build him up with that and gold keys. Gold heads. Sorry, when I said gold keys, I meant gold heads. If it was a gold key commander, come on, of course. Of course. It's not going to be though, is it? Not awful. It's kind of like definitely not an. Just thinking about other people and their rating systems. I usually do out of 5, don't I? I reckon he's because he's smite and he's not immune to skill damage reductions, which is probably slightly more common. It's got that technical smite bonus. Okay, I think I'm leaning towards a 3.5. 3.5. Luce is probably. I think Luce, if I remember correctly, has got a boring additional skill on his active skill. So I think it reduces. Don't quote me on this. I think it reduces march speed, which is blah. Yeah, Luce would probably. Luce's better, miles better, because Luce's out and out area of effect. My gosh, can't remember what I rated Luce. Probably 4.5. This guy, yeah, 3.5. That's my thoughts. Anyway, hope it was useful. Give me your thoughts. What have I missed? Is there anything else I need to add in another add-on video? Whatever it is, let me know your thoughts in the comments. Like and subscribe. 100% free, apart from, blood in, blood out. That's even about.